Hey everybody, welcome to our Tuesday night Team Palace call. We are so excited. We just got back from an amazing trip to Sundance, Utah. It's advanced leadership training. 250 of the top leaders gathered to learn, to grow, and to really take our brand, our Optavia brand, and our future to the next level. Dr. A was really looking for us to be leaders, transformational leaders. What does that look like? What does that mean? And can we become resourceful enough? Can we become the kind of leader that can take this brand that we're creating to the next level, to be a positive, powerful force for transforming not only the health of our country, but the health of our world? So it was a big, tall order. In order to go higher, you got to dig deeper, jumping on the trampoline. And so that's what we did all weekend. Was we went and dug a little deep and looked at some of the habits of transformational leadership. I want to share with you one of the things I think is so important. It's like, and especially for those of newer coaches, and to remind ourselves kind of what we're doing, what our mission is, what our purpose is. Go ahead and share my screen real quick. Basically, we started working with Helen Irwin, who does full potential branding, and she is a nationally known expert for creating a conscious brand, one that serves the world. It's not enough to just have products, have a program. It's, can this better mankind? And so we are what we really are, agents of transformation. There's a lot of diet programs out there. There's a lot of health programs, but going over this, I'm not going to read it, but it's real important that we stand for people who are ready to take personal responsibility for their optimal health in life. And so that's what the big mission that we were called upon as leaders was, to take responsibility for our lives. And so I'm going to go ahead and share with you the habits of transformational leadership. And one of the things that we learned, so we lead from the future, we act in the now, we take responsibility, we play above the line, we seek growth, and we embrace obstacles as the way. We connect authentically and cultivate trust. We awaken potential. We transform masterfully. We deliver extraordinary results. We serve to better mankind. And this weekend, we looked at the first 3 habits because these are personal to us. And the last 3 habits are relational. But unless we can manage our own lives and our own selves, we really can't have a relationship with anyone else. So we really dug deep with these first ones. And I'm going to have, go ahead and turn it over to Dee. He's going to take, we may just get to one of these and go deeper with them, but we'll be able to train on them, in the upcoming months. But let's go ahead. Dee, would you go ahead and would you like to share your screen? Is that something? Or what do you think? Hold on. I unmuted you.
Okay. Yeah. It might be better for you to close yours and then I can click and drag because it is on 2 pages. So you stop screen sharing. Let me see if I can share mine. Are you seeing my screen?
Yep.
All right. I had it open. There it is. Okay. Can you see that?
Yeah, we can only see, go ahead. We can see half of the drama triangle.
Okay. Well, I'm going to start at the top first anyway, before we get there. So yeah, like Susan said, I mean, it was a very interesting weekend because we spent really 2.5 days just on these 3 habits. So we really went in depth, and as Susan said, what I found that the whole weekend experience was really starting to analyze and recognize what our own personal behavior is and how we respond to situations, and then how, because that is ultimately going to affect how we interact with other people, how that interacts with our clients, our coaches, if we're coaching coaches, and ultimately in our business. And I just found that to be so true. So this was one that I told Susan I'd be comfortable speaking with, because I really felt that it was very, very appropriate and something that we could take a look at ourselves now and really start to put in place now. So Dr. A kind of kicked this off, and then it went to Helen, but they talked about what they call conscious leadership. And there is a book, I think it's called The 7 Levels of Conscious Leadership. But the overall initial concept with this is where this talks about the line of responsibility. And when we're conscious of how we're responding and reacting to things versus our unconscious reactions. So, for example, when you talk about, let's say a situation occurs with us where you see this line and it says conscious, if there's a situation, let's say a negative something, maybe all of a sudden several clients are canceling orders or something like that, something that's I'm just gonna put it on a business level, something that's affecting your business. If we're conscious about it, we're not going to really get emotionally attached to it. We're going to be more open about what's going on. We're going to be open to what's going on, maybe open to suggestions from our mentor or, our spouse, somebody we're venting off to. We're going to be open to what they have to say to maybe give us some additional guidance around it. We're also going to be curious. So, for example, if a client, starts canceling their Be Slim, falls off the program, whatever, we have 2 different options. And you'll see down below, it says we can be defensive. One option is to be defensive. We blame the client. Why is that happening? It's their fault. They're not reading the book. They're not attending the meetings. They don't, or we can get curious about it and say, why is this happening? Why do I suddenly have several clients that are falling off the program? It just gives us the opportunity to explore that, to see if there's maybe something that could be held differently. And so when we're in that mindset of consciousness, we're going to be in a growth mindset. We're going to be willing to grow as individuals, develop, work on our own personal skills and development, and we're going to probably end up ultimately growing our business. The unconscious things, and that's what Helen said, is what's going to hurt us is when we don't see our behaviors. So the one thing that's going to hurt you is what you don't see. And that might be an unconscious behavior. And that's where we're going to get into this, what we call drama triangle. But when we're unconscious, the kinds of behaviors we're going to have is we're going to be much more closed-minded about a particular issue, probably more defensive about it, feeling that we did everything right and that has to be somebody else's fault. And so that difference in that level of consciousness is going to make a difference in how we respond to challenges, because challenges are inevitable in any kind of really in human life. So they got into something what was called a drama triangle. And basically, we're in the center here. They call that the drama circle there. But basically, you've got your issue that you're dealing with. And this could be something in your personal life. It could be your business. Maybe you're just not having a stellar month. Maybe you had a goal for yourself for the month and it's just not happening for whatever reason. So there's various responses that are going to be human nature. There are various common responses of how we're going to respond to this. So it's, basically, are we going to take responsibility for what's happening? And that's going to be an empowering response, or are we going to react? And the typical thing is we typically react. And so the typical reactions, you'll see up here, the first one is victim. And I know this is one I can personally relate to, because a victim will start feeling powerless, start to feel like this is out of control. Maybe you're not meeting your frontline volume goal for the month, and suddenly you feel like there's no clients out there, and a scarcity mindset, and it's not your fault, the clients are canceling, whatever it is. The next thing is, there can be a tendency to withdraw. So we see a problem, and so we just ignore it, or we don't talk to our mentor, or it's kind of like our clients, right? When things aren't quite going right, we notice that they start to detach. They don't want to face it. They don't want to deal with it. We can, if we're facing a situation that's challenging, a lot of us go into paralysis. We kind of freeze, right? We don't know what to do, and so we do nothing. And a big one is blame. We tend to blame others. It's got to be somebody else's fault. They ran out of those Optavia bars. That's the problem. It's not, so it's somebody else's fault. We tend to wait for something to change. We either wait to watch another webinar and gain more knowledge, or we wait for somebody to rescue us. So I'll be honest, that's the one I probably find myself falling into when I get into a situation that is uncomfortable. The other one could be a response. It's called the hero. And some people's natural response is that if something starts going wrong, let's say there's, we had that shortage of the Optavia bars. Well, a hero is going to sweep in. A hero is going to start trying to fix things because they're a fixer. So they're going to start trying to do immediate short-term little things to fix things. So maybe you have some Optavia bars in your supply and a customer's upset. So instead of handling it maturely, try to have the difficult conversation, tell the client it's really not about the food, we might hop in the car and drive the Optavia bars over to the client to try to make it easier and smooth things over. So while it can sound very heroic to be the hero, it can also be not favorable for ourselves and our business because it really starts to enable other people, not really helping them to grow. So sometimes maybe if a coach is coaching another coach, they might start stepping in. Well, let me make that phone call for you. Let me do that for you. I'll write your Facebook announcement for you, and start doing that. And so then the coach doesn't grow in that situation. The dark side of being the hero is that often builds up resentment. So where we started initially helping people, now we get angry because everybody's turning to us, wanting us to be their solution to problems. And it can be kind of a self-fulfilling need. It almost becomes to fill our own personal desire to be the hero, because that makes us feel good about ourselves versus focusing on the other person's best interest. And then a lot of times it can just getting caught up in the short-term hero actions will just take us away from our own long-term goals and planning. And then the villain is, this one I found a little more tricky. And Susan, if you have anything to offer, I would appreciate that. But the villain would be a little more selfish, controlling, fearful. So the example I could think of is really two examples in our business. Like, let's say the client is going to drop off the program or something, or we know they're going to drop off the program, or we know they're not following the program. And like, we see their B-Slim order coming up. Like, well, rather than have a conversation with them and finding out, what's going on, do they want to order, do they want to continue, and knowing that order might not, we may not reach our goals if we get that order, maybe just letting that order go through. Or pushing a client to get on program before they're ready, or pushing a coach before they're really ready to move forward. Those were the kind of actions that I could think for that were acting more out of desperation and fearful. Susan, did you have anything else in your notes about that?
Yeah, well, we get angry. A lot of times the villain came out, and sometimes with our families, like we yell at our children. People were saying that, man, I'm like the villain. People say they go through all of these. And here's the one thing to remember, and that was great, Dee, because, but one of the things to know is that we all go through, like, we will always go below the line because we're human, like Dee said. But how quickly are we aware of it and go above the line, and what strategies do we use to get back? So that's what we're working on, is to build our consciousness muscle that, and we're looking at how big is our vision that is compelling enough to have us adopt these habits to stay up. But the villain, I think that was a hard one for me too, but there was something that I really did relate to with the villain. But let's go ahead. Yeah, I didn't have much for the villain.
Okay. And I really did talk about that we often can go from role to role. We can go from victim to getting angry to hero. Like, that can all happen in one scenario. The key is though that the most of us have a typical response. And that typical response is something that we need to be aware of what's happening. So it becomes a very conscious effort. Are we going to react to situations, or are we going to respond? And I've written this down. I think that Dr. Anderson said it, that the power is when we choose our response versus a reaction. When we're closed, all right, so we're below the line, right? We're closed. We hit that, we might be on the surface acting like everything's grand, but when we're home alone, we might be talking bad about our clients or whatever. We fall below that line. That's when we typically derail. All right. And we probably all had that experience at some point when we hit into one of these three things. It's when we can typically start to derail, and we're going to suffer as individuals. Our clients are probably going to suffer. Our families may suffer. Business will suffer. When we reframe and we choose our response, and like I said, going back to this at the beginning with the being open, being curious, growth mindset. Well, if a client cancels, as Susan has always shared with us, just recognize that's part of what we're doing, that there's more clients out there that want what we have, and think in an abundance mindset versus a closed. Like, hey, it looks like I just need to have more clients in the funnel because some are going to fall off. I can't depend on every single order every single month, kind of thing. So working in that more positive mindset. So an exercise that they had us do, and I thought that this was very, very helpful because of the very last question. So I would recommend that everybody write this down and take a minute, or I would say actually take 10 to 15 minutes, maybe even after this call, to do this, because it will be very telling for yourself. But you want to think of 3 experiences in your life that have created, problems per se, that have created one of these responses in you. So they could be 3 work-related issues. Maybe you're not reaching your goal for the month, or maybe your frontline volume isn't where you want. I did a partner exercise, and she looked at her divorce. Her divorce was one of them, that it was a very painful situation that she went through and how she chose to respond to that and how it impacted her going forward. So think of just three situations, but I think a work one would be really good. And then just ask yourself, how do I typically react? And I was already honest. For myself, I'll tend to go into the victim mode of feeling powerless, of starting to withdraw. All right. That's when I know I probably need to be talking to Susan, because my own, systemic thoughts are going to probably get me in trouble. So how do I typically react? So pick your situation. How did I react to that? And then of those 3, see, okay, what's my habit? What's my typical response? And the biggest question here, I thought, was, it said, what is the payoff with this habit? So there's a reason that we do what we do, right? So there might be a reason why you become a hero, or there's a reason why we go into victim mode, because it usually provides some sort of protection. Like for me, if I go into victim mode, well, that the payoff for that for me, it's avoidance. So payoff doesn't mean good. The payoff is, in this situation, is a negative situation. So the payoff is avoidance for me. So if I go into this mindset, if I avoid this, I don't have to deal with it. And then that means I don't have to go through the painful self-growth of starting to learn how to maturely deal with this particular issue. So then we think of that payoff and go, okay, I have to sit back and say, okay, but is that payoff bringing me to what I want, right? So if I want to live in this comfort zone of avoidance, is continuing to repeat this pattern, is this best serving myself, my clients? Is this, especially as a coach who coaches coaches, is this a best example to provide for my coaches? Probably not, because I tend to all withdraw and not be there for them as needed. So I think that this was one of the most valuable exercises for me, and probably every coach could benefit from as well. And that's what I had, Susan.
Really great, Dee. I was just looking at my notes that the villain actually is blaming. And I did have a hard time with that. So the villain actually is blaming, and the victim is the feeling powerless and waiting for something to change automatically and not really doing anything because of the situation. And so it is a little tricky, because I remember working with my partner, and I was saying, well, I guess I'm more the victim because I'm not really blaming. She goes, what do you mean you're blaming? I was talking about a situation, and she's, no, I was blaming. But so those were a little bit hard. But I think when we get aggressive, or we get mean, or we get, lash out and take our anger out, I think is the villain. But it is about blaming others. That's what I have in my notes.
And victim could be blaming ourselves. I know that personally, I'll start to question my own ability sometimes, blame myself. Maybe I should have done something different. And I've heard coaches say that as well. They'll start to blame themselves for something. So maybe that falls under victim too, that we're responsible for it, which we're not necessarily.
Yeah. And one of my things that came up for me was, one of my experiences was around our business, is like, sometimes I'll ask people's opinion. I've done this from day one around, as a leader, okay, what do y'all want to do? Do y'all want to have a training? Do y'all want to have a call? What should we do around this? What should we do around that? And if one person says no, I probably won't do it. And so there have been choices like this Tuesday night call I did anyway, whether anyone showed up or not, just because I wanted this as a process. But and so I go away, kind of like a little bit of the victim. Like I don't blame other people. I blame myself, and I feel bad that, okay, well, am I doing the right thing? And so, but what's my payoff? That was really interesting because we know what we do maybe, but what's the payoff? And, for me, it's about not doing anything to make anyone else mad, like being approved of, having people like me, and it's easier, if I don't do anything, it's the easy way out. And so, but like to Dee's point, it's not the best for my team. Am I serving in the best way possible, or am I taking the easy way out? And so it was really eye-opening. Let's go ahead. I just want to open it up for questions because I think Dee did a great job. And this is a really important one. And everybody has these. So anyone have any comments, questions, thoughts?
Well, I thought one of the interesting things was, I think, Susan, you made a really good point when you said that these are things that we all go through. I think one of the most other powerful things I walked away with from Sundance was they really had the top leaders just kind of sharing, because everybody's going through this, right? We're all setting up to be the leaders of this new Optavia brand. And it was fascinating to have people like Terry Miller, David Miller, all the top leaders really stand up and talk very vulnerably about what their current behavior has been, what their mindset has been, and the shifts that they're making. If anything, it's like anything, it makes you feel better that realize that you're not in it alone. And really that, us being a little more authentic and transparent, and, letting ourselves, our coaches, everybody know we're on the same journey, and being very relatable, I think is only going to serve everybody the best as we move forward.
Absolutely, Dee. Dr. A went through his process. We got to see everybody do, Dr. A, Helen was very open about what her challenges are and where she goes. And it is about being conscious or unconscious. We fall into these things because we're human. And how conscious are we going to, be around it? And how fast can we move above the line? Yeah, Malls?
So I guess this might be an obvious question, but I'm just looking for some clarification. How do you delineate between where you fall as a victim or as a villain or as a hero? What's the distinction between, how it might be in your work world versus your personal world? Or is it typically doesn't matter? You know what I'm saying? Like, because I could see myself in one way in my work world, and I would get a different answer in my personal world.
Exactly. And and many people, yeah, and many people cycle through all of them, as he said. Yes, there are different ways we react when we're in a different situation. Absolutely. Because we're a different person there, and maybe unconscious things come up, whether it be how we were raised or a situation or something like that. So yes, you will be different in different situations. You could be. Although I will say that as I was talking about what I do as a leader here, it parallel what I do in my family as well. In my marriage, and I'll, seek approval. Andy, do you want to go to the movies? No. Then I'll get mad because I want to go to the movies. I don't get mad at this team at all in this situation. And then he goes, well, why don't you say, let's go to the movies? But I need him to want to go to the movies. I need, Jay to want to eat his fruit. Jay, do you want strawberries? No. How about with whipped cream? No. I said I didn't want them. And Andy goes, okay, the question is not, do you want strawberries? It's, you will eat strawberries. Do you want them with whipped cream or not? Instead of, so I don't say what I mean clearly. I'm asking people's opinion, and it's really annoying. It's really not a good way to, and so it was just so evident. And I know I've been so seeing how it parallels in my professional world as well, and what it's costing me as a leader, was real eye-opening for me.
And I think the awareness helps you recover more quickly. You know, I've already, since in 2 days being home, caught myself a few times going there. And like, oh,
Yeah,
get above the line, get above the line.
You can't change what you don't know.
Right.
You can't change what you don't acknowledge.
And it's why we probably need to be open to mentorship, I think, and you know, be open to mentorship, because like she said, what hurts us is what we don't see, you know, and so we know it with our clients, right? So it's true for us too.
Yep, and that's basically what they were saying, exactly to your point, you know, both Dee and Molly, that this is about awareness. And seriously, and really one more minute, I'm just going to go and do, oh, go ahead, Liz, let's do it. Let's finish this up.
So I'll go fast because I've been working with Dave Blanchard, and one of the things that he will do about this negative thinking, so when you go below the line, he has a technique, and for me it's been super powerful. It's just, you just basically tell yourself, stop, I'm not going there, and I use my hand, I just stop, not going there. And he uses 3 phrases: I want to, I get to, I choose to put you back in the empowered place. So it's a technique that I use and have found really powerful when I start to get below the line, because when I get below the line, then I start to sink. And if the sooner I stop with the thinking and just have a visual that reminds me, which is my hand, the sooner I can get closer to the line and then above the line. So that's a technique.
Love
Yeah, that's good. We heard the word choose a lot this weekend. What do we choose to do? You know, it has to do with another one as well that we're going to talk about probably in a future week. But that choice, when you start getting faced with that choice, that's pretty powerful.
Mm-hmm. And I love what you said, that when I'm below the line, I sink. That's such a great analogy. And what someone, I think it was Dr. Joe, who says, you know, sometimes when we try and push people above the line, we have to get below them to try and push them up, so we're going low. And the other, now I was thinking of myself as he was saying that, like, especially whenever we try and pull people up, we have to reach down and they could pull us down. So it's really about taking responsibility for ourselves and not going into the hero mode, which a lot of the guys spoke about the hero mode. And that was a very big one at Sundance with the leaders. And really throughout the whole weekend, this was our first exercise, that kept coming up. And we kept, you know, oh, look, this is what we do here. So it was really very, very cool. And it was very cool too, because I have to say, being there with Nicole and Dee and thinking about you guys, just so y'all play above the line so much. I mean, all the habits, you know, our team really is very high. Like, I was really thinking and so, you know, thinking about everybody being so aware and conscious on our team. It was really kind of cool. So. All right, well, let's go ahead. We'll end it, and then we'll talk more about next week. Next week we'll have rank ups. We've got, yay, Penny Packers, congratulations, Deb, Dee, and that's really exciting. And then we have a new manager, so hopefully we'll have maybe some more, but it's really exciting. So we'll talk more about these different habits soon.
And we got the event on Sunday, Shine.
At the event on Sunday, if you know anybody in Atlanta, Deb, if you know you got your Atlanta folks, we'll take care of them. Great. All right. Good night, everybody. Thank you.